Welcome to the Clarion. I'm here today with my friend Cosmic Claire.
Hi, I'm Cosmic Claire. I do a video blog on YouTube in which I talk about things which are outside of the normal mainstream, I suppose I should say. That's how I usually introduce myself. I've had a long involvement and interest in alternative subjects, and my academic background was in philosophy and psychology, and then qualifying as an art therapist. So that's a little bit about my background, but I'm also very much into what you might call the spiritual side of things.
Claire has really awesome videos that are pretty much almost nightly, and they cover a very wide range of topics. And I came across her when I was looking up material for this video on transhumanism, and she was talking about the Hobbit movie. And some themes that reminded her of transhumanism. That caught my attention, and I really wanted to have a conversation with her. So she's here with me today to discuss transhumanism, and we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to basically raise a few questions. We're going to let you know what state the technology is at right now, what's coming ahead of us, and ask questions on whether or not how these things would be applied and whether or not they can be applied safely. So, like right now, I see some really cool things, like there's this wildly ambitious quest to build a mind-controlled exoskeleton by 2014. And this is basically with the idea of it being a medical prosthetic for paralyzed people. And I think this is great. So, you know, this is the type of transhuman technology. And I guess before that, transhumanism, before we launch into things, is basically the idea of combining technology with physiology. So when you get to the point where technology, where the human body, or when the body in general is depending on technology to get along, that becomes transhuman. So I've had friends who have in the past argued that glasses are actually a form of transhuman technology. But that might be a little bit extreme unless we're talking about Google's new Google Glass, which is totally integrated wireless technology that you can video all of your surroundings and, you know, send messages and always be connected and have this HUD overlay of your reality. What do you think about all of this stuff, Claire?
Well, I think I agree with you about the medical uses. I mean, I've in the past I've also worked in medical and psychiatric nursing, and I've seen people with severe Parkinson's disease, and this is a terrible condition. If it were possible to insert some sort of kind of microchip that would stabilize the motor neurons, I would think that would be all to the good. But then, of course, this is often possibly the thin end of the wedge, where if the manufacturers of this software embedded access backdoors into it, you don't know what it might lead to. And obviously when you're talking about things like these Google glasses or embedded Wi-Fi technology, whereby people might be able to have artificial telepathy, then that is, well, I think quite a potentially dangerous technology to be getting into, because if we just think about the internet, where proprietors retain access to software and stuff like this, I think people who are advocating this sort of technology are not thinking very far ahead in the potential for abuse. So I'll just leave that there for the moment, I suppose.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people are thinking that this technology and these questions are far away, but they're really not. Like, for instance, this exoskeleton prosthetic that's mind-controlled is apparently only a year or two away. This article here, neuroscientist Miguel Nicolelis went on The Daily Show in 2011 and told Jon Stewart that he would develop a robotic bodysuit that would allow paralyzed people to walk again simply by thinking about it, and he'd do it in just 3 or 4 years. It was an audacious, some might say reckless claim, but 2 years later, Nicolelis insists he's on track. He hopes to prove it in brazen fashion in front of billions of people during one of the world's most watched events, the World Cup. So this guy, during the World Cup, is actually going to have a young person who's paralyzed walk out in an exoskeleton and kick the football, which is amazing. I think that's an amazing application of this technology. But what they're doing is they're taking these sensors, they're putting circuits into the brain of the person, and they're basically using right now about 500 neuron signals to control everything. And that's good, but like you say, if it ends up being the same scientist has also come up with sensory feedback, where they were able to take a monkey and have it be able to identify objects based on an object that it was just hooked to neurologically. So in other words, there was this arm with sensors on it, this hand with sensors on it, and they put an object in the artificial hand, and the monkey could tell what the object was. So I mean, now we're getting to the point where we're sending very intense and complicated information back into the brain, not only having us control other objects, but having us receive information like that. So this is now, and this is like not in the future.
Yes, well, I think one of the things about this is that, for one reason or another, I think that people aren't as aware of how far advanced some of this technology is. Partly because I think that, I suspect, I mean, obviously I don't have evidence for this, but one can't help suspecting that if this kind of thing is, as you've just described, publicly announced and discussed, then how much further ahead is the secret military applications of these, which are invariably going to be more advanced, because they will be receiving virtually unlimited funding for research.
Right, absolutely. I mean, this whole Google Glass thing is basically just a knockoff of the military's full integration CQ3. So, where every soldier is fully integrated, can receive commands in real time and fully video the battlefield and have sensors everywhere. So, and then having Google, which is a known NSA agency, and it's sort of an open secret where plenty of people sue the NSA trying to prove the outright connection there, and federal courts say they don't have to prove it because it would compromise national security, which in itself is basically an admission.
It is, isn't it?
But Sergey Brin, and Eric Schmidt are like a two-man operation team, while Eric Schmidt is over at the Bilderberg meetings, trying to determine how best to control all of the information with all of the other cronies. Sergey Brin, his big muscly photogenic self, is trying to get people literally to believe that Google Glass will make you more manly. In this new article, by Wired, Sergey Brin says that Google Glass will make you more manly, that it will help fight the antisocial and emasculating habit of compulsive smartphone checking. Yeah, in this 10-minute talk, Brin didn't provide concrete new details on Glass, a cross between a smartphone and a pair of glasses, but he did confess that, having used Glass, he felt emasculated and isolated every time he checked his regular smartphone. So we're supposed to believe that having this, this interconnection is by compromising your own health through these extremely low frequency, wireless signals, and compromising your personal security and the security of all those around you with their information, their personal information. I mean, someone could just be looking at their credit card for a brief instant, and that can record all of that information. Or someone could be looking at, whatever. You could be walking into a businessman's office, and they could have, confidential corporate information just right there on the, this is an issue because we know that this technology can record without seeming to record, and it can be on without seeming to be on.
Yeah.
So,
well, I wonder if I can take this off in a, I mean, this is all obvious stuff in a way. I mean, obviously it's not something that people think about, but once you start applying your mind to it, these things, they're not totally new technologies. They're just developments of technologies which already exist. And so it is no wild step of the imagination to think that these things, could be just a few years away. They could be already happening. And I think it's one thing that's quite interesting, that it's kind of played down by the media, and I think this could be, well, you say on the one hand they're kind of selling it as a slick thing, but on the other hand they're kind of playing down the dark sides of it, the downsides of it. But I thought what you said about this making people who use these things more masculine, well, actually, they might think so in their reality, but you may have come across some of the things I go on about in my video blogs, where I talk about the human values of different cultures, past cultures. For instance, the heroic values of the Celts, who, which is kind of some of the backdrop to the work of J.R.R. Tolkien in The Hobbit, the Norse cultures and things. And these are people who have very, very different values from the sort of things which are being promoted by these, by the transhuman agenda, because their values, their heroic values, were built on autonomy and independence and the ability to survive in circumstances which where they might be up against situations completely outside of the tribe or the culture. And so this is, in a way, this is a complete opposition. They're somehow, I mean, I can't understand how being dependent on a machine can make anybody more masculine. It stretches my imagination. But in their world, where they think this is of value, it is it's diametrically opposed to the traditional values. And we're not just talking about one culture, the Celts or the Norse or something like this. I mean, we're talking about the universal of values of indigenous cultures throughout the world and throughout world history. You think about the shamans of the Amazon, or the Buddhist monks of the Himalayas. They are learning self-mastery through inner discipline, and the idea of using external unliving technologies is completely at odds with what they're trying to do, because actually what these things do is weaken us. I think this is something that you might possibly want to go into, but I do very strongly believe that the more dependent we are on these technologies, then the more it weakens our inner world, our ability to be in control of ourselves and our own feelings and our own destiny. I don't know what you think about that.
I totally agree. The more we depend on technology like this, the less really independent that we are. Because, I mean, think about it. You can depend on yourself, but if some of this technology breaks down and you become dependent upon it, what are you, like, you're an automatic technician in that? Are you going to be able to repair that? If that's going to put you into more debt, eventually. And that's just what this equals into is technological serfdom, technological debt, and people are going to love it. But, at least those who don't really seriously consider the spiritual security and health issues that are all present here. Not to mention, probably serious psychological issues that would be involved with, trying to fully virtualize our whole consciousness. But we're more and more entering into a ghost in the shell type of future as envisioned by Masamune Shirow, where, for those of you unfamiliar with that, I mean, it's pretty much prophetic. Go check up the anime and the manga Ghost in the Shell, all you listeners out there. And it's set in a fictional city in Japan in the future where everything is pretty much transhuman. Most people have cyber brains. Most people have completely cybernetic prosthetic bodies. And there's this government section called Section 9 that handles, cybercrime and cyber terrorism and all that other stuff. But it's gotten to the point in that reality where people can hack into each other. It's called ghost hacking. They can alter their memories. They can make other people commit murders and they don't even know. There's
a lot of this stuff. I mean, I'm not actually familiar with, but I can just, from what little exposure I have to anime and these kind of things, it just seems like these are inevitable and logical consequences of this kind of thing. And I think it's very interesting how it takes people away from the deeper human values of loyalty and integrity, because it just puts more and more opportunities for, well, as you said already, hacking into people's minds. I mean, this is a terrifying concept, and I believe that that the human consciousness should be able to be completely autonomous and separate from machine intelligence. I mean, we seem to be in a world where scientists are wanting to give life to machines, and they're wanting to turn humans into machines. So it seems to be turning things completely upside down. And I know there have been various mythologies in which, I understand the Hopi have a mythology whereby they say that the human race will split into two branches. H.G. Wells went into something like this with the Time Machine. I think it could possibly happen, but I think that it might. I think that I have a feeling that you might get left with a very small minority of transhumanists who don't want to give up because they're what they've got themselves into, because they're as much afraid of re-experiencing the human condition as they are of giving up the power. But that people who retain their humanity will see the awful loss of human emotion that would happen to people who get into these kind of embedded technologies. And I do feel that in the long run, most people will reject it. But I think there is a transitionary period where many people might get inveigled into it by false glamours.
Yeah, and for those people who actually do avoid the trap of how attractive that technology is, for those who do, I mean, there are other less obvious dangers. Like if you don't accept, your augmentation of your own body, some people will. There are also these other things like little robot servants that are coming out that are half the size of humans, and they're going to be subsidized for home care, health care, things like that. And there's going to be a lot of people they're going to come down in price, and people are going to be buying them in their homes, to do all of their, their stuff for them. But what I see is that that's great, but again, that's an opportunity for any malicious hacker or any entity to take over that item and use it as an espionage tool against you or a harmful tool against you. You can spy on you, it can do any of those things. So, I mean, even if you don't accept, the actual augmentation of yourself, we are so entering into this age where, you really have to determine what are your moral values and what will you be self-sustained, or will you depend more and more on technology and, these things, because you have to, again, that robot, even if everything goes perfectly as far as it not being compromised in security, it's still going to break down. It's still going to cost a lot of money. You might have to, people are going to buy insurance for it. It's just going to get crazy. But, that's the type of thing where if everyone has one of these little robots in their homes, how easy would it be for one person to basically cause havoc? Or one organization, even if it's a government organization or a rogue organization or a foreign government, whatever.
I'm actually thinking about, I can't remember what it was called now. It was a rather interesting movie I saw about last year with, you probably know what it is. I can't remember the title, but it had Bruce Willis in it, and everybody had kind of prosthetic robots that went around radio controlled, and people stayed at home in their darkened rooms, running these prosthetic things. So you would have, it's kind of like Facebook taken to...
was that Looper? I didn't see it, but...
No, Looper is is just come out, isn't it? This one was I saw this on the TV, and anyway, this was it's several years old, and the Bruce Willis robot prosthetic was considerably younger than Bruce Willis's, which is quite amusing. But in the end, people began to realise that this was a serious problem for the human race, and actually somebody brought the system down with a virus attack. So it kind of feeds into what you were saying there, but perhaps from another end. But I mean, people will be... it's become more and more apparent that the threat of hacking is a serious one, which is not going to go away.
Yeah, and people move so fast towards it, and people in these corporations and these government agencies sort of push like really fast on this technology to get people to accept it like really quickly without giving them time to consider the dangers and the security risks. Yes, I mean, because we're basically like a control population for some of the health issues and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, this with GM foods, don't you? And that very interesting video that you sent me the link for, was it Frequency? I think it was called, the one that showed how much danger the massive electromagnetic overpollution that's going on, and people are eating these genetically modified foods with poisons in them and things. And obviously, I'm sure you're aware of this. Obviously, in America, where the corporations are resisting people finding out about what these things are, having them labeled, research into them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm very happy about that. And I also recently just heard that Hungary outlawed GMO seeds and burned acres and acres of Monsanto GMO corn. So that's great news, victory for justice. But that brings us to a great point, which is that with the age of transhumanism comes a global increase in ELF emissions.
Oh, yes.
And ELF are extremely low frequency emissions. And these are very, very harmful to human and animal physiology. So it threatens the ecosystem of the entire planet. So basically what that translates to is that your cell phone, your wireless internet, our satellites, and the big HARP systems that are blasting our ionosphere and all that, all of these things are causing a collapse of our physiology from a genetic level. It's causing cancer. I'm going to be linking to that video that we talked about frequency.
Yes, yes.
And it shows how, for instance, how colony collapse disorder from bees is not only from pesticides and all those other stress issues on the colonies, but they show that when you put these wireless signals next to a bee colony, it will collapse always.
That was the most alarming point in that video. I thought it was incredible. I mean, I have quite a good lot of bees visiting my garden, but there's a mobile phone mast not very far from here, and I have a sleep disorder, and I often wonder whether this might be in some ways
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it definitely interferes with the human sleep disorder or human sleep pattern, circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
And it can lead to cancer. But in the animals, the birds, it will mess up their migratory patterns. Seafaring creatures will mess up their migratory patterns. It really is. It's destroying our entire ecosystem. And corporations and government know that. And one of the reasons it's so upsetting is because Monsanto is literally genetically engineering new bees in order to resist pesticides and ELF transmissions, or ELF emissions.
Yeah.
So they're basically causing the problems and then coming up with the solutions.
Well, I also I'm thinking about ELF because I've read things quite some time ago as well, actually, that these things, both audio and electromagnetic low frequencies, can be used to cause psychological disturbance. I believe that they've been used as weapons.
The harp can do that too.
Yeah. And although it's hard to pin down an evidence, I was quite interested. This is slightly speculative, but probably not as speculative as it might first sound, is that I supported the Occupy movement here in Leeds, and it was surrounded by high buildings. And everybody was very well intentioned, and everybody got on very well, and it was very well disciplined. But every now and again, there would be massive outbursts of anger and distress, which were almost unaccountable for. And I began to wonder whether we were being targeted, because this is exactly the kind of thing that you would see. I mean, this is exactly the kind of behaviours that are described in accounts of the use of these things as weapons. So you can see the kind of potential that can come from these things.
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing more things being employed against crowds, like sonic, technology and things like subsonic things that are like, it's just horrible. The problem with these things, I mean, what do you know about nanotechnology?
Oh, well, I suppose I know what's kind of, popularly disseminated about it, but again, as with all military technologies, I'm quite certain that they go a long way beyond what you see on the mainstream news, well, I would hesitate to say how far it could go, but
the thing that really concerns me about it is that, have you ever heard of Ray Kurzweil, the futurist?
Yes, I have heard about him. I haven't looked into him as much as I would like. He's on my kind of list of. There's too many things going on to keep.
Yeah, I know how that is.
Yeah. I have heard the name, and I have heard that he's quite an ardent activist for transhumanism, I believe. Isn't he the chap who's already been implanted?
Yeah, he tries to alter himself by taking, like, I don't know, 100 pills a day to try to keep himself alive long enough for technology to keep him alive forever. So basically, he hangs out with the Bilderberg NWO super elite crowd, and he whispers into their ears all of these mad dreams of you can live forever as a machine, and you don't have to worry about the consequences of your actions because you can live forever. You don't have to worry about the earth and the environment because if you could live in the vacuum of space if you wanted to. So that's and these are the ruling class that's buying into this type of thing.
And they lose contact with their humanity because they consider themselves to be beyond pain. So I mean, speaking in terms of somebody who's had a lot of experience of working in mental health, I feel it's really absolute core, essential part of human relations for people to have empathy, to understand that other people have feelings, emotions, pains, discomfort, and all this, the human condition. And so when we have a ruling elite who themselves are, living in the lap of luxury and comfort, and then they're finding that they can do these things to their bodies, and they become more and more alienated from the human conditions. They become more and more machine-like. Of course, machines don't understand human feelings. They don't have compassion, and we're getting into a kind of, psychopathic.
Just turning themselves into biological machines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's worrying because with him, Kurzweil is a supporter of this theory called information singularity, or the technological singularity.
Oh, yes.
And this is where technology increases to the point where either it becomes so integrated that all information becomes one, or let's say a machine started creating was able to self-replicate. And then it improved itself so fast over generations that all information again just ended up becoming one in a short amount of time.
This is an idea which was popularized by Star Trek: The Next Generation nearly 25 years ago, isn't it? And you know what I'm talking about here. We're talking about the Borg.
Yeah.
I've read
assimilation.
Many novels. I recently read, it was called The Eyes of Heisenberg by Frank Herbert, the famous author of the Dune series, and he wrote a number of other sci-fi novels, and they're all very, very predictive. And this minor book he wrote called The Eyes of Heisenberg had cyborgs in that. And when they were talking about human experiences and stuff, the cyborg's eyes would glaze over and say things like, "Oh, I have some vague data file of that information," and you see that people, it's loss of humanity, and also when people think that they are immune from death, that would create an arrogance and a separation from normal humanity, that you can't have people being ruled by these death bots because they already have no understanding, and we see from the whole financial collapse and how poor people are being dispossessed and the rich people are just becoming more powerful, and this would just continue to exacerbate this whole problem, further and further separation and isolation. And in the end, actually, I think one of the important things is that people who would subject themselves to these things, they are actually losing as well, because they are losing their souls in a way.
Yeah, and in those people who lose their souls like that, that separation from the human condition generates this fear-driven need to dominate and control. Like people in Washington, or people in states like Illinois and states like Chicago, when they fear the people, they want to take away their guns. They want to take away. They have to control them because they fear them. They fear their autonomy. So if we get to the point where everything is so integrated, these people who are in the ruling elite, they are just going to follow that same pattern. They're going to be in a state of fear-driven domination. So that's something to keep in mind.
I mean, we see this with the drone war in Afghanistan, where whole villages of civilians are just taken out by some techno geek in Washington or
some guy
Langley.
in a freaking basement, with a little
It's
joystick,
just
murdering children in another country.
It's a video game to them, and it's a further and further alienation and isolation from reality. And I think this is one of the things that I'm constantly coming back to in my video blogs is the experience of consciousness, because we are consciousness, and we experience pain, we experience love, and to me this is all part of our evolutionary development. And without even getting into ideas of transmigration of souls or existence of the soul beyond death, nonetheless, even just thinking in the organic human terms as we are now, you can't evolve if you take yourself away from these experiences. I mean, you see this thin end. One thin end of this wedge is the use of psychiatric drugs and all these. There's a vast array of them these days, which basically stop people feeling, stop people thinking, and encourage them to just exist in a kind of a zombie-like or automaton state.
Yeah, it's a total abomination.
It's the main reason why I left involvement with mainstream psychiatric medicine, some 20-odd years ago.
Which has just become psychopharmacology.
It is, yeah. It's all about control. It's really control of the parameters of people's minds. Whereas, on the other hand, I think that the future of humanity lies in growth of consciousness. I mean, in education, I've also worked a little bit in education, and one thing I felt about that very strongly was that it was all about training. It's not about education. It's not about teaching people how to look at things, how to have a critical mind. It's all about training. It's about entrainment. It's about just getting people to learn patterns of behavior, and not about learning how to be adaptive. And I'm very into the idea of evolutionary psychology and the adaptation and growth of the human race, and our experience on this planet is about, it comes through curiosity. And of course this is one thing they really want to stamp out.
Right, there's a certain type of education method that follows that pattern. I think it was developed by a Norwegian woman, or I forgot what it's called. I always forget what that's called.
Yeah,
but yeah, those are great values to hold. One of the things that, I mean, with you've heard about the sort of desire of the ruling elite to tag and have everything identified and cataloged, and just
the Codex Alimentarius and that kind of
right.
Thing,
yeah. And things with like Agenda 21, where they just want to identify everything. They literally wanted to tag, RFID tag, everything from trees to animals, everything within their zones. So the reason I ask about nanotechnology, with all of this, is that we're moving ahead to the point that you don't have to worry anymore about, let's say getting an RFID bracelet or anything like that. You have to worry about having a nano tag in your vaccine and stuff like that, where the paperwork you sign will have little small print that says, oh, and by the way, there will be an identifying device inserted within you with this vaccine, or something like that.
Well, I think a lot of people did around about 2008. I don't know whether it was just linked to the financial crisis, but I know that there's been a massive increase in awareness about all this kind of stuff since 2008, and I found when I started looking into this whole area in 2009, I realized that vaccinations were not something that I should be really taking uncritically,
Right.
particularly with some of the health problems that I've got and this sleep disorder. So I'd previously religiously taken flu vaccines every winter, but since 2009 I have steered well clear of them, and even though it's interesting that whereas some years ago they used to say, oh well, we're a bit short and maybe you won't be able to get one this year, now they're saying, oh, don't forget, it's really important, you must come and have your flu vaccination. And so the very fact that it's gone from one where it's just kind of voluntary, well, you might have it, we might run out, you know, it's kind of low-key, to this kind of state where they're really, really trying to encourage people to take these things, and if you don't have it, they send you a reminder, and, you know, schools are, you know, trying to get children to take them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard about the one where children get some sort of extra bonus if they all take these vaccinations and stuff.
Oh yeah, I hate it. Hate it all.
Parental consent sometimes is not even engaged. So you have to. I mean, I find myself thinking that one has to be suspicious of these things just from the way that they try and hard sell it on you and soft sell it on you, and just try and sell it on you any way they possibly can, just to get you to do it. You know, so there has to be something going on behind the scenes, because otherwise it's just an expense, and it should be an entirely voluntary thing. And why?
Never.
So hard.
Never blindly trust those things. Always check the validity of anything that you... That's the whole theme of this podcast, is always check the safety and validity of things that you allow into your body and into your life.
Absolutely.
You know, especially these things that seem, you know, that are purported and pushed by government and corporations to help you and to make your life easier. But you should know by now, anyone who's at least an adult should understand that these people will take advantage of you if you don't look out for yourself. So don't compromise yourself.
No, and I think this is well, I think that this is one of the kind of an evolutionary layer that we're going through at the moment, because obviously even within the kind of the known spectrum of human history, we have the kind of lengthy ancient prehistory that might have rather a lot more in it than we kind of are led to believe, but it certainly all seems to have been kind of organic technology, and the culture was passed on through word of mouth, and actually if you look back to even kind of as recently as people like the Druids and so on and so forth, they had really well developed minds, they had vast memories that they had learnt, the stories and the tales, but since time has gone on, we've become more dependent on other things, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of losing my thread a little bit here, but we don't have the adaptability. This is what I'm saying, was we don't have the adaptability. And one of the things, this is the point I was going to make, was about lying. Now, I was talking about this with a friend the other day, that animals don't know how to lie. It's a chimpanzee can just about get it after many years of exposure to human beings. But in the modern world, we're actually covered by a kind of just an endless layer of deception. And I feel this is a very, very important evolutionary step that we're going through in the evolution of consciousness on the human species, because this is why you look at the indigenous cultures, like the original people of Australia, the people in the Amazon jungle and so on and so forth. They have been very easily taken in by the modern world, and it's been a very steep learning curve for them to realize that they have been deceived. The Western world, we've been kind of bred on this, so we're accustomed to deception. You know, it's kind of deeply embedded in us. We don't even see it. And
it's so horrible watching it with them and like the Native Americans and stuff too.
It's tragic, and I think that it is so important. I think this is really one of the fundamental things that we're going through at the moment is, obviously there's all this talk of the awakening, and I think it is primarily and fundamentally about learning to see deception. I think that's really what it's about.
Yes, yeah. Being able to have discernment of what is good and what is bad, what is true and what is not true. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
I just wanted to, this is perhaps kind of even a bit further over the edge, but I'm particularly interested. I mean, you were talking about the business about people wanting to become, be embedded in machines and,
Yeah, that's a huge problem at the top.
That's right. And there's something that I've been interested in since, well, it's 35 years or more now since I first got into this subject of consciousness, and I was very interested over the last few years. I've been hearing about, I don't know if you're aware of Roger Penrose, who is a scientist, who is a neuroscientist, and he has postulated well, it's not exactly the mechanism. He has postulated the ground of consciousness as being quantum activity in neurons. And
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting because it is the interface of what you might call subspace and material reality, and there has to be some kind of interface there. And I'm a great believer in the observer-dependent universe, that consciousness is the precursor to existence. It is not a mechanical production of organic matter, just producing it as some kind of side effect. Because what the people who are proposing, that they're trying to, the reductionist model, which puts consciousness merely as it's just a mechanical byproduct. It's an epiphenomenon, and it's not really of importance. So you get this with the new atheists like Richard Dawkins. And basically it turns humans into nothing more than mechanisms, and it deletes the importance of consciousness, whereas I look at it the other way around. Consciousness is the primary thing because that's whereby we have all experience. And what these people who want to become machines, they have this idea. I mean, you still see this in sci-fi. People still talk about it in serious science. I mean, I'm staggered. It's completely absent of any philosophical basis. They want to download their consciousness into machines. And what they don't understand, I mean, I always say this is a category error, because all you're doing, if you could record all your brainwaves and all your programs, then all you have is a digital copy, and if you programmed that into a machine, all you would have would be a digital clone. And these machines, they're even the vastest, most complex supercomputer can never operate like a human brain, because one is made of silicon and wires, and the other is made of organic matter, which has things going on that people don't even know about now anyway. And they also have this quantum activity, which Roger Penrose and his associate Stuart Hameroff have also talked about. So we're not only going into a dangerous territory for the potential of the human race, but actually these people don't even really know what they're doing. They are going to kind of destroy themselves and leave kind of automatic machine versions, kind of just running on kind of what would it be, automatic pilot, you know.
Yeah.
It's a fundamentally flawed view of reality, and I think that they need to, if they really understood that they are destroying themselves, then they might kind of step back from the brink, but we shall see.
What I think is interesting is at the top of the control pyramid, there are these, the Satanists aren't as quick to jump on, because what it comes down to is whether or not you believe in the afterlife. If you want to live forever here, it's because you don't believe that you're going to continue existing after this place. So people like Ray Kurzweil, who are, atheists of a certain flavor, he wants to, like you say, become, but he's waiting for like quantum technology. He's waiting for quantum computers and something like in Ghost in the Shell, where they have cyber brains, which are organic matter, and quantum computers. So they want to, like,
that would be a kind of future development on this stuff, but I think it would still, even I still think it is a questionable thing that you could transfer the
I hope it's not
from a genuine brain into another one. At the very most, it would create. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you know Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doctor Who. It's a long-running sci-fi show we've had in this country, in the UK. It first appeared the day after JFK's assassination, and what the primary nemesis of Doctor Who is this kind of alien from a super advanced civilization who's kind of gone renegade, but he's always up against the Daleks. I don't know if you've come across the Daleks.
Daleks, I've actually heard reference to that.
Oh yeah. Well, if you look them up, D-A-L-E-K-S, Daleks, they're absolutely legendary in Britain. They are the transhumanist nightmare. They have like a small organic sort of remnant mutant embedded in this machine. And a few years ago, the doctor actually met one of these and got it out of its machine. And when it saw what it was, because it had only ever been enclosed in the machine before, it didn't realise it was just this lump of protoplasm with an eye. But when it realised what it was, it said, "This is not life, this is sickness." And I thought this was such an insightful way of looking at transhumanism. In Tolkien's Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, they have the orcs, the goblins. They are creatures which they are elves and men who have been, in the words of J.R.R. Tolkien, they have been tortured and mutilated, or if you put that in modern terms, they've been genetically engineered into super warriors, and they have no compassion. They just want to destroy things all the time. And so this is the kind of being that these people want to create. They want to create themselves. They want to turn into these Daleks who are separated from the world by machinery, and they just turn themselves into a lump of quantum protoplasm, and then all their servants are kind of RoboCop cyborgs. It's a profound psychological pathology. I do think that, I think we're going through a stage now where just as we're having to confront deception, this is a big part of the deception, isn't it? Trying to persuade people, as you said at the beginning, that men can be more manly by having this done. They can lose their humanity, but I think that we will eventually get through this, and people will see, because I believe in shall we say the understanding of heart consciousness, and I think people, when they see what people become in this, they will feel revulsion, and there's a much greater and more expansive evolutionary pathway ahead of us, where we are exploring possibilities rather than the cyborg transhumanist. It narrows possibility and choice down ever and ever more narrowly, until you just become a robot, and you lose touch with all freedom. And that's where the consciousness comes through, the quantum indeterminacy, the contact with the infinite consciousness of the universe that we experience through our quantum activity and our neurons.
Absolutely, amen to that. Welcome to the age of transhumanism.
Well, I'm sure it will not last forever, but it's certainly a challenge that we're facing right now. Yes.
Oh yeah, after that we'll be in the age of posthumanism.
Well, yes, I mean, well, there's a whole other topic.
Yeah, there's a whole other topic.
About the constructionists and deconstructionists and all that. There's a kind of movement in philosophy, I think, which has kind of been subtly and covertly leading people into this belief that there are no such things as values, and that it's all just artificial social constructions. And I think that's been a precursor to this, but as I say, that's another conversation. But we are where we are now.
Absolutely. Need more people of value like you. It's been a true pleasure, Claire.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
Hope you join us next time on the Clarioncast.